over a decade ago. I'm trying to think of the exact how many years ago. It might have been like 10, 11, 12 years ago. I'm really bad with remembering dates, so it was a long time ago. That's all we need to know. It's a long time ago. A friend of mine told me about this 3-day event, and she was like, Beck, it's gonna change your life. It's personal development, and you're gonna change everything. And at the time, I was just so open to anything. I'm like, I want to go and build this company, and I want to go all in on my life and all in on who I can be. And so I just said yes. It was $700. Maybe it was a little bit more, maybe 700, $800. I didn't have the money. There's no way I had that money, but I just got everything together and I'm like, okay, let me go in on this. And what's interesting was that event did change so much for me. And what it really changed was my perception and how I viewed my life. And it's not like I didn't learn anything new, but that entire event was engineered in a way where it broke down every part of who I believed I was. Like my entire identity was cracked open. All of these stories that I believed I was really changed and really cracked me open. And that event, I don't think I would recommend to people. I think it was very intense in the way that they did it, but something that really changed my perception, I've never forgot it. It's changed so much moving forward, and I'm going to share this with you, is how when we add meaning to events in our lives, we create stories. So growing up, we have things that happen in our lives where we're going on in our life and we have certain events and we're told as, from childhood to create meaning. That's how we make sense of our life. If we don't add meaning to an event, we often can't process it. It's like I get hit by something. That means that I need to be more careful. That means that I wasn't doing this right, or something happens to me. That means something. I fail at maths. That means that I need to do better. That means that I'm not good at maths. And so we create these stories that then run our lives. So this was really interesting to think about how every single event that had happened in our lives, and we've all gone through events that we wish didn't happen. We've all experienced things in our life that have very much so changed the trajectory of our life because of a meaning and who we've believed we are from those events. And oftentimes it's not till you go back and you look at, why am I this way? Why do I believe that about myself? Why did I work that way? Oh, because I believed that XYZ had to happen based on this thing that happened when I was 5. Like so much of this is from so much of who we are. If you haven't changed it, if you just go through life, you're just going through life with all these stories and beliefs of who you are. So I became very fascinated with this after the event, and it stayed with me forever and ever and ever. It'll always stay with me that event plus meaning equals story. Event plus meaning equals story. We can do this in a really positive way where something happens to us, you have an incredible day in your business, and you can create meaning around that, and that can fuel the story. So it's not that that equation is wrong, but sometimes we can create meaning that's not actually true. You can fail at something and then make meaning around that you're a failure, and then that's a story that you lead your life with, and that's not actually true. So I think that you can use this equation, it's totally fine, but what you want to really be mindful of is where you're creating stories and meaning, where you're adding meaning, and it's like, where is the truth in that? Is that actually true, or is that just your perception? Is that just your current experience, but it's not actually a true reality? It's just one reality out of a million. And this is where, when I say like forge your life, create your own life, like we get to choose this, we get to choose how we experience the world. And this is where this comes in, where you have to consciously look at the meaning that you're adding to things. So another way to look at this is event and no meaning is just an event. There's no story. And in this experience that I went through, there were people that had gone through very, very, very traumatic experiences. And through my own going through this event, I had to look at traumatic things that had happened to me back in the day, and things that, I was holding shame around, or that had happened to me. I hadn't actually done anything, but it happened to me. And I had to really look at where I'd created meaning and what stories I'd created around myself that had then impacted relationships and friendships and things like that. And I could go back and go, okay, if I remove the meaning, the event is just the event, it no longer runs my life. And I think this is like very, very, very deep work, and I won't go into that. And it's not something that I really will do in my work. But I think that if you have the capacity to hold a concept like that, and everyone's going to have their own unique experience with that, but that for me really set me free, where I was now with that equation, I was now undefined. Like no event could change my perception about myself. Nothing that happened around me or to me, like it no longer was the thing in my life that held me back. Whereas people, they go through life and they have experiences and then they add meaning and story and they're like, I can't because I am who I am. It's like, no, like you chose to be that based on that event. And I've just never wanted to be the victim in my own life. I've never wanted to let a past experience or something that I've gone through define how I move forward. I want to be undefined. And that takes something. That takes being able to sit with, is this actually true? Where did I decide that? I remember looking back and realizing that everything around me, like my entire life was a summation of stories. Like it's just the story that I've told myself around what's possible. It's so easy to let meaning and story run our lives because a lot of the time it feels true. It feels like the truth, but it's just one truth available in that timeline. Like there are so many other realities, and we see this again and again and again. We see people that have grown up in, no money, no parents, nothing. And some people have let that be the reason why they can't ever create something big with their lives. And then there are other people that have gone through the exact same set of circumstances and they've let that be fuel. They've looked at what's happened to them and they haven't let that be the reason why they can't move forward. They've let that be the reason why they do move forward. And so there's so much power in this mindset. And it's such a simple equation: event plus meaning equals story. And so, what are the stories that you've told yourself? And even looking at certain events that have happened in your life, and this is deep work and this is big work. And if you've gone through very traumatic things, this is something that you probably want to do with a therapist or a psychologist, someone that can hold you in this space as you go back to some of those events. But if you can really hold this yourself, it's like, what is the meaning that I created? And if I remove that meaning, an event happened, and we don't, it might have been a bad event or a good event, but without the meaning, there is no story. It's just an event as an event. And now you have the power to create the story of what happens next instead of letting the meaning dictate how the story ends and how that unfolds. And this is where you get to write the story. And something that I'm not interested in, like invalidating people. I'm not interested in saying your story doesn't matter, because your story does matter. It really does matter. But what doesn't help a lot of people is to let everything that's happened to them dictate the story. I'm really interested in you being set free no matter what's happened to you in your life, no matter what you've gone through, no matter what you've experienced. And I know that it's not easy, especially for those of you that have gone through really big things in your life. This is not easy to do. But if you want to create your own life, and if you want to dictate the way that your life goes, and if you want to be the actual creator in your experience of life, like this is what it takes sometimes, is removing the meaning and knowing like that happened to you or whatever it was, and that's a really hard experience. But then how are we moving forward from here? So many people, they live with stories about who they believe they are, and the worst part of this is they believe that it's true. They believe that they are that version. And so when we reverse the equation, we remove the meaning, all we have is just the event. And as human beings, something else that I really took away from this weekend is we want to make meaning. we want to make meaning, and the sentence that they use is like we're meaning makers. Like all we crave in our existence is to have meaning because we want to make sense of the world and our experience. But I think just where this goes, like in a negative direction, in one that's more victimhood and one that's more out of our control, is when we create meaning that isn't actually the truth of who we are. So then all of a sudden we're stuck in cage because now we identify with a story about who we are, but it's not actually who you are because you can be anything you want to be and you can change at any time and everything and anything is possible, right? And so it's just like not when things are happening to you and they're happening around you, it's like, what's the meaning? Because you can either choose to not add meaning, not make it personal, and go, okay, that happened. The event is just the event. Now, how do I want to move forward? Or it's like, okay, this happened. I could choose to add this meaning, but instead, I'm going to add this meaning. It's like you fail at something instead of making the meaning of like you're a failure because that's what happened when you're 5 years old. You were told you're a failure because you failed a test, and your teacher, or your parent, or society told you that you're not good enough. Instead of adding that meaning or reverting to the story in the past, because a lot of these stories are outdated. So it's not even as well that the stories are wrong, it's that that was a story to protect you when you're 5. Don't do that, you're going to fail. Don't do that, you're going to get hurt. And you're told, like, don't do, that's why the reason why this happened is because you did this. You were maybe told that growing up. But now, as an adult, as someone that's now creating their own life, as you're building your business, as you're creating the life and business of your dreams, like, it's like that might have served you back in the day, but that's no longer the truth of who you are. That's no longer the truth of your life. So it's like, when you think about these stories, when you think about what you're creating, it's like, okay, do I want to add the story that served me 25 years ago? Or what's the new story? What is the new story that I'm going to create? Our lives they reflect the stories that we've told about ourselves. And most people, they're carrying 25 million years of stories. Like we've got all these stories that we're carrying, and people, it's heavy. It's like what makes dreams so hard to ignite sometimes, and we want to forge these paths, is because most people are carrying the weight of meaning and stories based on 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of their life. But these stories, a lot of them are made up, and you can bring some of them with you. I have certain beliefs that I believe so deeply about my life. I believe that everything and anything is possible. I believe that my life matters, that every part of my life matters. I believe that you get to have it all. You get to have the life of your dreams, the business of your dreams. You don't have to sacrifice. I have certain things that I believe, certain stories, certain lenses that I choose to see the world through. And so I bring those with me, but everything else I let go. And one thing that I'll do, and one thing in my world is like, I question everything. It's like, is that actually true? And then where did that come from? I'm really good at identifying, like, where did that actually come from? And is that true? So if you take one thing from today, let it be that event and meaning equals story. And you can even write it down, like if you're wanting to do an exercise, like write down certain events that happened in your life, and then what is the meaning, and then what is the story that you created. And when you remove the meaning, you just have an event, and you now get to rewrite the story of what that was. It can just be an event that happened to you, and it doesn't mean anything about who you are. It doesn't change who you are. You get to decide who you are and how you move from here. Now it's like, okay, who do you get to be from here, knowing that that's just an event that doesn't define who you are? You become undefined. And when you become undefined, you set yourself free, and your whole world changes.